Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show. It's been a very difficult week for the government, with Keir Starmer performing yet another screeching U-turn on benefits. I'll be asking the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Wes Streeting, whether the Prime Minister's position is safe. I'll also be speaking about welfare to Helen Whately, the Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary. Which benefits would the Tories cut? Nicholas Hopton, the former British ambassador to Iran, will be joining me to discuss the latest situation in the Middle East. Plus, I'll also be joined by researcher Edward Davies, who will give me his frank views on the government's screeching welfare U-turn and climb down. Is Keir Starmer still in control? And the journalist Sarah Vine, formerly married to Michael Gove, will be here to discuss her new book, How Not to Be a Political Wife. Does her ex-husband regret knifing Boris Johnson after they both supported vote leave? As ever, we've got 90 very punchy minutes of politics to come. So do not go anywhere. Right, let's get stuck into the Sunday papers now. And joining me for that is the political commentator, former PR man extraordinaire, Piers Pottinger. Lovely to see you this morning, Piers.
Nice to be here.
Goodness me, we've been discussing this all morning in the green room, haven't we?
Yeah.
This situation at Glastonbury with the Kill the IDF chants. I don't think we need to watch the footage again. We've shown it a lot on breakfast, but this is a band called Bob Vylan who have been shouting Kill the IDF. And I suppose the controversy really is twofold. First of all, why has such hatred been normalised in the UK? And second of all, why didn't the BBC cut that live stream?
Yeah. And also, why did the Evis family at Glastonbury put them on? The answer to that, I'm afraid, is cynical, because Glastonbury's become very middle-class glamping, and as we've heard, it has lots of art displays and big food culture, and it's rather lost its edge. When it started, it was very kind of hippie, slightly alternative culture, and now it's older people. I mean, Rod Stewart on tonight,
yes.
He's 80. So now they wanted a bit of an edge, and they've got the publicity, they've got the edge. Evis has said, if you don't like the politics, go somewhere else.
Not sure if he'd be saying that if people were on stage saying
well,
yes
I
to
wonder,
the Palestinians.
yeah, exactly. But, I mean, the BBC, they didn't need to show it. It was quite clear what both Kneecap and Vylan were going to do beforehand, and they shouldn't have broadcast it. Simple. I mean, I personally don't know what it takes for Tim Davie to resign.
Well, if you were giving him some reputational management advice right now, Piers, what would you be telling him?
I'd tell him to resign.
Would you?
I would, yes, because I think not only have the public had enough of him, but also a lot of his staff. I mean, he's now got 300 members of his staff writing to him, complaining about censorship, because for once he took the right decision and didn't show the Gaza documentary, which now Channel 4, of course,
I know,
are
I
showing.
couldn't believe this. I read this in the Sunday Times today. So Channel 4 are showing that documentary. It was pulled because it was found to have not involved the necessary journalistic checks. A number of the contributors were seen to be sort of Hamas sympathisers. Channel 4's happy with it. This is the state of things.
Yeah,
Piers.
I mean, Channel 4 is happy with almost anything. And again, they're in such a parlous state themselves. They need as much attention as possible.
So you're thinking this is
all... It's
all
cynical again.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
all publicity is good publicity for the Evises, for Channel 4, but
yeah,
not perhaps
because they're getting the audience, they're getting the attention, and the kind of ignorant people who were waving Palestine flags at Glastonbury, I mean, those are the kind of people he seems to be wanting to attract for future Glastonburys, which is very sad.
It is very sad. Let's move on to another organisation that appears to be in a parlous state, and that's our government. So we've got a year into Keir Starmer's premiership now. It's all been marked by sort of first anniversary pieces. He's given an interview to The Observer. Now, this was tasted, I think, on Friday. They released it really early for a Sunday paper interview. And in it, he makes this confession that he regrets the island of stranger speech. What do you make of all this? Because there's another sort of mea culpa on the front of the Sunday Times. He's blamed, he says, I was distracted by the NATO summit, so I wasn't across the benefits stuff. That's why I U-turned. He had said about the island of stranger speech, oh, I was a bit distracted because I'd just been in Ukraine for 3 days. Is this good optics?
Well, no, of course not. It's pathetic. I mean, if you're going to be the Prime Minister, you've got to deal with these situations, and he hasn't. He's failed on almost everything he's done as Prime Minister. And what is clear is he's not a politician. He is a lawyer, and he is not a politician. He's got no political judgment. He can't control his own party, who are up in arms. And they sense blood now because they've got him to U-turn 3 times in rapid succession. And now it's open warfare. So anything they don't like, they're going to rebel against. And there's already signs of more coming down the line. Plus, he's got a summer of strikes coming from the medical profession.
Hang on a minute. I thought the Labour government gave these people pay rises, so there would be no more strikes, Piers. What are you saying?
Well, that was a year ago. That was a year ago, so now they need more money, and it's the summer, so they don't like working in the summer, these people.
Oh, my goodness me. And there's a poll in the Mail on Sunday which basically reveals what the electorate thinks, and let's be honest, it's not particularly rosy. More people would like Keir Starmer to resign than to stay. Do they approve of the government's policies? No, they don't. Who would they like to replace him? I'm interviewing Wes Streeting later. He's on 6%. Apparently 6% of people in the UK would like Wes Streeting to replace Keir Starmer. Would it be a more effective administration with Angela Rayner at the helm, Piers?
Well, I think the thing that Angela Rayner has got that Starmer hasn't got is a little bit of humanity, and she comes across as more of a personality. She has got a little bit of charisma.
Yes.
There's no doubt at all, and people who've met her always say that she's fun to talk to, she's engaging, and she is actually quite popular with the press, which is more than Starmer is, because Starmer is wary of the press and has no idea how to handle them, let alone how to be a leader of a party or Prime Minister. I mean, she would be, I think, a dangerous person to take over because she's more left-wing. She would be quite fearless in even doing more spiteful and nasty socialist things than Starmer's already done.
When you say about Starmer and the media, what do you think he doesn't like?
Well, he's very wooden with them. He doesn't seem to have any real rapport. And if you notice when he's doing these early morning press conferences, which are always popular with the press at 8:30 in the morning for some reason.
Setting the agenda, Piers.
Setting the agenda, that's right. What it means is he can then get on with the rest of the day and minimise the time with the journalists. But he fiddles with his papers and his pen, and he doesn't look them in the eye, and he never answers a direct question. This is what Nigel Farage, answers questions directly. You ask him a question, he'll answer it. Even if he doesn't like the question, he'll still answer it, which is more than can be said for almost any other politician around at the moment.
Yes.
And that's the reason Starmer has a connection with the British people that nobody else does.
No, you mean Farage does.
Sorry, Farage, I certainly do, yes.
Starmer
doesn't have any connection, no.
I'm quite happy to have a connection with Starmer, Piers, if only he would come on this show. It's strange, isn't he, why he doesn't want to face Tominey grilling. I can't think why. Let's move on, because, as I said, I have got Wes Streeting coming on the show.
Yes.
Now, to be fair, he quite likes a little bit of political bant, so this should be fun.
He's the most intelligent member of the cabinet, in my view.
Do you think so?
Yes, I do. I think he's already at war with Starmer over assisted dying.
Well, he says the NHS can't afford it.
He said it can't, and he voted against it, whereas Starmer voted in favour of it. And Streeting, I think, is an intelligent man, but he's made a fatal mistake, which is to think that it's the government's role to run the NHS. It isn't. It's their role to shape policy for the NHS.
Yes.
I mean, it is ludicrous to suggest someone who has no management experience can be in charge of the 4th largest organisation in the world with over 1.5 million employees. And I'm afraid this 10-year plan is another pie-in-the-sky stuff we're going to get.
Well, it sounds good, doesn't it? I don't know why everything is done in 3s or 5s or 10s in politics, the 10-year plan. I'll be asking him about that. I'm going to be asking him about a story on the front of The Sun on Sunday, suggesting that the killer cop Wayne Couzens, who murdered Sarah Everard, has been allowed to have a procedure on the NHS which cost the taxpayer £7,000 and another £10,000 in security. But what I'd like your opinion on is what we call the government drop for the day, which is this idea that in order to cut weight, we must cut weights. And it's
Yes.
saying that we must all consume 200 calories less than we currently are to solve the obesity crisis. But when I saw these proposals, I thought, goodness me, this is the nanny state on steroids.
Of course it
They're
is.
now inside our shopping baskets, advising us on what to eat.
I mean, again, this is insane. This is kind of George Orwell stuff again. It's you know, telling us how we must eat, which is absurd, and it doesn't work. I mean, all these sugar taxes and every other attempt to control what we eat is absurd.
I mean, I'm all for supermarkets taking the sugar out of foods where you don't even expect there to be any sugar, bread and all the rest of it. If you look at the average soft drink and you get the diet alternative, obviously the sugar, even in full-fat drinks, so to speak, the sugar content has come down massively since the 1980s, where you had a can of something and it would rot your teeth. But this is kind of intervention. It's too interventionist.
It's very interventionist. And if you look at the NHS, it's the demographics that, you know, they're ignoring. The growing, a much older population, and also 500,000 last year and nearly 1 million the year before, new people coming into the country every year, puts increased pressure on the NHS. And that's the problem. It's, I mean, put 100 calories here or there isn't going to actually solve the NHS's
Although I'm sure Streeting
problems.
will argue, you know, obesity is costing the NHS billions.
I'm sure he will.
A very quick word as Wimbledon is about to kick off. It's the wrong phrase, that, isn't it? It's about new balls, please.
Yes.
Tomorrow we've got Wimbledon starting, and a lot of rumours in the newspapers about a romance between England's very own Emma Raducanu and Spain's Carlos Alcaraz. This is exciting. This is a PR match made in heaven, Piers, isn't it?
Well, I should think all their sponsors will be thrilled, yes. But, I mean, when it comes to the tennis, I mean, Alcaraz is clearly the most exciting young player in the world. And Emma has been the most exciting young player in the world. And unfortunately, I think over the last few years, has gone through hundreds of coaches, various injuries, and tennis has not been her strength. Maybe
Carlos can help
her. Well, maybe Carlos can sprinkle some magic tennis dust.
And have her recreate the joy of winning that US Open.
We'd love to see her win Wimbledon.
Wouldn't we? Oh, what a dream that would be.
It would.
Yes, a British woman winning Wimbledon. It would be fabulous.
I think the first since Virginia Wade.
Indeed so.
Wonderful.
Piers Pottinger, thank you very much indeed, as ever, for your expertise this morning. Great to speak to you. Now, as I've been saying in that newspaper review, you know who's coming up. Wes Streeting, their health secretary, will be with me very shortly. Do not move a muscle.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's going to continue to be very hot across southern parts of the Mediterranean over the next couple of days, but not everywhere is going to see that hot weather. Parts of Madeira, the Canary Islands, seeing a little bit of clouds and blustery winds over the next couple of days. But it's southern parts of Spain, southern parts of France, parts of Italy, Greece that will continue to see those temperatures rising into the mid, perhaps high 30s, maybe even locally the low 40s too. There will still be plenty of sunshine on offer for many though, and those temperatures will be on the rise as we go over the next couple of days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's not just a presenter, he's an award-winning television icon. A household name for decades, from GMTV to This Morning, and now waking up Britain on GB News Breakfast. Join Eamon Holmes, TV royalty and multiple Trick Award winner, as we bring you the news that matters. This isn't just breakfast TV, this is GB News Breakfast. Every morning from 6 a.m. on GB News.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Wes Streeting, the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care. Lovely to see you, Mr. Streeting. This Glastonbury situation...
Good morning. I've got my shin pads on, my crash helmet, ready to go.
Oh, good. Yeah, get that tin hat on. The questions are going to be coming thick and fast. First of all, Glastonbury and Bob Villan. Should he be investigated by the police? Should Tim Davie resign? What's your view?
I think the police are investigating, so I probably shouldn't say more about that. I do think the BBC have got questions to answer, as of the organisers of Glastonbury, about how this particular act came to be given such a prominent platform. And, of course, the comments that he made were completely disgraceful, but I also suspect were attention-seeking and publicity-seeking. And, actually, I think what we ought to be focusing on is, the violence against Palestinians in the West Bank this week, the conduct of Israel's war in Gaza, and the fact that even now, and this is the perverse irony of what we saw at Glastonbury, the people, the Israelis who were taken from a music festival, killed, raped and still being held captive, those are the serious issues we should be talking about, which shouldn't be minimalised in the way that I think this act did.
OK, but why aren't you mentioning the violence of Hamas in that little statement?
Well, I certainly did, in terms of what happened to those innocent Israelis at the music festival on October the 7th.
Hamas continues to use its own people as human shields. I mean, why have we got people at Glastonbury not saying death to Hamas? I mean, it's an unbelievable situation. You must look on Britain right now, see those scenes at Glastonbury, this complete normalisation of anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish hatred, and I hope, like me, have your head in your hands.
Well, absolutely. Hamas is a death cult. We should be in no doubt about that. And I suspect that half of those drunken revellers, in fact, most of those drunken revellers, wouldn't want to live a single day in life under Hamas. As I say, they are a death cult. And none of us would choose to live under that kind of oppression. And I think we should... It's not for me as a government minister to start dictating to arts organisations or indeed broadcasters who you do and do have on your programmes. That's Orwellian. But I do think we should think seriously about how we exercise the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. And if people are serious about peace and ending violence, think about what on earth did that achieve yesterday, that sort of language.
OK. Quick follow-up, though. We've had the Pulled Gaza documentary, we've had this, we've had the Gary Lineker debacle, we've had Dawn French recording videos, and she works for the BBC. Doesn't Tim Davies, just a yes or no answer please, have to consider, at least consider his position?
It's not been the BBC's finest hour. I'm not going to comment on the future of the Director General. That's not my place. I know the culture. I know that Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, is talking to Tim Davies, and that's probably all I should say this morning.
All right. Let's talk about the Prime Minister. Does he have to consider his position, Wes Streeting? We've got yet another screeching U-turn on benefits after the screeching U-turn on the winter fuel, a screeching U-turn on grooming gangs. Keir Starmer doesn't really know what he's doing, does he?
Well, I don't agree with that. And by the way, I mean, you look at a couple of the interviews the Prime Minister's done today, one of the things I respect and like about the guy is when things go wrong, when he makes mistakes, he's honest about it, takes responsibility for it, learns from it, and most importantly, puts it right. And that's what we've done on welfare this week. We're in a better place today than we were this time last week. And look, it's not all been plain sailing, and I'm not going to pretend for a moment that we haven't made mistakes, nor does the Prime Minister. But there are also things we've gotten right in the first year of this Labour government. There are examples where this country is moving in the right direction.
I know, we don't want a party political broadcast.
Is to balance out and think about the ups and the downs. No, but, you know, I think it's fair to say that for the mistakes we've made, we've also done a lot of good. There's much more to do.
2 points there. You're saying you're tackling benefits. Well, you're not, are you? The benefits bill has gone up by 86 billion in a decade. Because of this U-turn, you're now shaving a mere 2 billion off it. And by the way, the benefits bill will still be higher at the end of the Parliament than it is now. So you're not tackling benefits at all, are you?
Well, we are, and one of the important ways we will be reducing the benefit bill is by getting people who can work and therefore should work back to work, whether through providing employment support or, in my case, with the NHS, making sure that people who are off work, off sick, making sure that we're cutting waiting lists so they're not just back to health, they're also able to go back to work.
Can we agree the benefits bill is going to be higher at the end of this Parliament than it is now? So any talk of cuts to benefits is actually just a barefaced lie.
Well, that is a fact you've just stated, that we will be paying more for the welfare system at the end of this Parliament than we do today. It's one of the reasons why this government is determined to reform the system, to make it sustainable, and that's the context in which we've been having this debate. Of course, we've got to tread carefully in this issue of support for disabled people, because there will be lots of people who, through no fault of their own, simply cannot work. Those people deserve and are entitled to a good level of income. Those people who can work should work, and those are the principles that lie at the heart of this system. I think where you've seen the debate with Labour MPs this week, it's been driven by the fact that what we all fear, including ministers, is you don't want someone coming to your advice surgery on a Friday saying, look, this is my situation, and your reforms have actually impacted negatively on me, and we're sitting there thinking, but that wasn't supposed to happen to you. So we want to get this right, and this week could have been smoother, not going to make any bones about that. But are we in a better place, having debated with each other, listened to each other, and found a way through? Yes, we are in a better position. And there'll be lots of disabled people watching this morning, I suspect, on PIP, who've now got the peace of mind of knowing their situation is not going to change, they'll be protected.
Weirdly, there were the PIP changes to actual disabled people and people with debilitating conditions like chronic arthritis. No changes at all in anyone claiming for mental health problems. Now, I completely understand the need to claim PIP if you are so incapacitated by chronic depression that you cannot leave your house. Why on earth are people claiming PIP for mild depression, mild, and I stress mild autism, and conditions like ADHD?
Well, we will be looking at those issues as we reform the welfare system, and also I'm making inroads on mental health. You know, remember we promised 8,500 more mental health workers at the general election. We're already well on the way to delivering that. We're at 6,500 at the moment, and there'll be more mental health support available. So that was partly my responsibility to get that bill down by making sure that people have got that mental health and well-being support to make sure that people can live happy lives and healthy lives and fulfilling lives without relying on the benefit system.
We're slightly running out of time. A very quick word on Wayne Couzens, the cop killer of Sarah Everard. getting this £7,000 lumbar puncture on the NHS while in prison. Can you tell me right now, Wes Streeting, that he wasn't fast-tracked for that treatment? Because it's usually a very long wait to get a lumbar puncture on the NHS.
Well, I'm not able to comment on individual cases.
Will you look into it?
That prisons have prisons have a legal duty to make sure that prisoners have access to the healthcare that they need. And I just want to make it clear, as a point of principle, I do not expect prisoners to be given preferential treatment or to be seen faster if they are in prison than they would be if they were outside prison, being treated by the NHS outside prison. Those are the principles I am very clear on.
We're running out of time, Mr. Streeting.
On an individual case as the Secretary of State.
Very quick answer to this. On your obesity crackdown, you can't really tell people what they can eat, can you?
No, and I've got no intention to. That's the traditional way of doing public health. And in fact, we go even further by saying that, you know, you've got to tax this, or you've got to ban that marketing or ban that price promotion. What we're announcing today is a partnership with supermarkets, welcomed by the likes of Sainsbury's and Tesco's, where together we're going to set a target to reduce the unhealthiness of the average shopping basket in the way that you and I won't notice when we're doing our shopping.
OK, thank you so much,
It's a shame I could have gone on for ages about this. But this is nudge, not nanny, and it'll be genuinely game-changing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now imagine this. You spend your entire life dreaming of public service. You work your way up to become the Director of Public Prosecutions. You then become a Member of Parliament, and just next to your constituency is a world-famous museum hosting
I'm imagining it, Tom.
waxworks of famous figures, and you dream that one day you will be featured in this mausoleum, for want of a better word. You become Prime Minister and you think, now, finally, my waxwork will be on display at the world-famous Madame Tussauds. And then they say no.
And then you find out that Theresa May has one.
Oh.
Yes, so Madame Tussauds, there's Theresa May. There she is in her suit.
Yeah,
she was always one for colourful outfits.
Theresa May has a waxwork there, so does Boris Johnson, of course. It's reasonable to expect the Prime Minister would have thought that he would join the likes of David Cameron, Theresa May and Boris Johnson with a waxwork.
Winston Churchill. Yeah. Winston Churchill has one. Harold Macmillan, apparently, was previously displayed. Tony Blair.
Of course.
Tony Blair, of course. But apparently, so Madame Tussauds can't be sure that he'll still be relevant in 5 years' time. That's the reason.
Is that why they've said it? No.
They can't be sure, so they don't want to put the money into it, presumably.
Wow.
I could imagine Keir Starmer commissioning his own.
And yet, Lord Salisbury had a waxwork, the Marquis of Salisbury, Harold Macmillan and David Lloyd George, of course. But the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland...
Think about this.
...does not have a waxwork because he's not relevant.
A spokesperson told the Metro, "We have no current plans to make a figure of the British Prime Minister."
GB News, the People's Channel.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 3rd year in a row.
So thank you so much for voting for us.
first, and hopefully there'll be a few more to come down the line.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's because of you that we're proud to be the People's Channel. It's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. Lots still to come on the show today. We're going to be hearing from Helen Whately, the Conservatives' response to the government refusing to rule out tax rises to pay for Sir Keir Starmer's benefits climb down. What does she think of that? Nicholas Hopton, the former British ambassador to Iran, will be joining me following the US's strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. What happens next? And I'm very much looking forward to this. Sarah Vine will be here to talk about her new book. Why are David and Samantha Cameron no longer speaking to her? But first, here's your latest news headlines.
Camilla, thank you. Good morning. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. The Israeli embassy says it's deeply disturbed by people chanting "Death to the Israeli military" at Glastonbury. Police are assessing videos which show one of the members of Bob Vylan shouting the slogan on stage and some of the crowd joining in. The punk duo also performed in front of a screen, quoting a claim that Israel's actions in Gaza amount to genocide. The group were performing ahead of Kneecap, who the BBC chose not to live stream after one band member was charged with a terror offence last year. They do deny that charge. The BBC says a warning was issued on screen during the performance, but Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharon Haskell, has condemned them for not stopping the broadcast.
This is an absolute disgrace. I just don't understand how chants for death, for the destruction of Israel, racist comments like that, have been just normalized in the UK. What do you think the BBC would have done had a performer been shouting anti-Muslim or far-right hate speeches? They would have pulled the plug immediately. So how come this only happened when it comes to Israel or to Jews?
2 more people have been arrested on suspicion of terror offences after aircraft at an RAF base was sabotaged in a move claimed by Palestine Action. Counter-terrorism police said 2 men, both from London, were taken into custody yesterday. They're accused of the commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism after the attack on a 2-tanker aircraft at the RAF base in Brize Norton just over a week ago. On Friday, a woman and 2 men, also from London, were arrested, accused of the same offence. The Home Secretary has moved to prescribe Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation. Supermarkets will have to help shoppers make healthier food choices under new government plans to tackle obesity. The Healthy Food Standard, which will require retailers to promote fruit and vegetables instead of junk food, is part of a 10-year NHS health plan. Supermarkets will be forced to report sales data and they could face fines for failing to meet targets. Measures also include tweaking recipes, changing shop layouts and offering discounts for healthy foods. A 7-year-old girl has died and another is in critical condition after a tree collapsed in a park in Essex. Emergency services were called to Chalkwell Park in Southend yesterday to reports of a number of casualties. 3 other children were taken to hospital with minor injuries. Chief Superintendent Leighton Hammett called the incident traumatic and that the families involved are receiving specialist support. England have won the Under-21s European Championship in Slovakia. Lee Carsley's side were defending champions and led 2-0 after just 25 minutes, but Germany forced the game into extra time with goals either side of half-time. Jonathan Rowe's dramatic added-time winner led the Young Lions to retain their title, winning 3-2. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Bethany. Still to come, Nicholas Hopton, the former British ambassador to Iran, will join me to discuss the situation in the Middle East. And Sarah Vine will be here to talk about her new book, How Not to Be a Political Wife. But first, joining me now is Helen Whately, the Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary. Lovely to see you this morning. Thank you very much for joining me. Just before we get on to your brief and benefits, can we talk about the BBC and Glastonbury? You'll have no doubt watched the scenes unfold there yesterday with the artist Bob Vylan shouting death to the IDF. I did ask Wes Streeting this and he couldn't give me a straight answer. Perhaps you can, Helen Whately. Should Tim Davies, the Director General, consider his position after this was live streamed, after the Canned Gaza documentary, after the Gary Lineker debacle?
Look, well, I did watch the clips and I was just disgusted by what I saw. I can't believe that the BBC continued to show it. I think they've got questions to answer as to how did that happen. And to see the footage of a crowd being encouraged to chant a death to Israeli soldiers, and particularly to see that at a music festival when it was, nearly on the way to 2 years ago, at a music festival in Israel, where we saw young festival goers raped and murdered. It was just disgusting to then see this chant happening at a music festival in the UK.
But the Director General, what should happen to him? Should he consider his position, yes or no?
Well, I think there are serious questions for the BBC to answer as to how did this happen.
So is that a yes? He should consider his position, Tim Davies?
Look, I don't want to be drawn on something like that.
Why can't politicians ever be drawn on this stuff?
My opinion on it.
Hang on a minute. Why can't politicians be drawn on this?
I thought about
He's the Director General. He's the Director General. He must take vicarious responsibility for what is happening on his watch. Every year, the BBC spends literally millions of pounds of taxpayers' money on its coverage of Glastonbury. It sends 900 staff. This isn't the first time that the BBC has appeared to give a platform to people glorifying anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish hatred. It's just a simple yes or no. Should Tim Davies consider, Helen Whately, his position?
Look, so you've thrown a question at me live on air. I'm going to say I watched the clips, I thought about it. I think that the BBC was wrong to continue the footage, and I think there are serious questions for them to answer as how that happened.
OK, let's move on to the welfare bill. How much would you slash it by? It's risen by 86 billion in the past decade. Some will say that it's actually the Conservatives' fault that it is at this staggeringly high level.
Well, I'm sure that you'll have seen, Camilla, that what we said to Keir Starmer when he was really struggling last week, and it was clear that he was going to be facing a defeat in the Commons next week, is that we would actually support welfare savings from Labour if they did three things. One is commit to actually bring the bill down properly. Two is to get more people into work, and three is commit to use those savings to be able to avoid putting up taxes in the autumn, which looks at the moment highly likely is what they're going to do. We made a commitment in our manifesto that were we in government, we would be bringing the welfare bill down by 12 billion. And I'm at the moment doing the hard work that you should do in opposition, which is work out if we get into government after the next general election, what are the things that we would propose then to be able to bring down the welfare bill if it goes up, as it looks like it's going to nearly 100 billion under this government.
OK, so 12 billion, fine. That's obviously more than the current 2 billion that the government seemed to be saving after this U-turn. Tell me this, Helen Whately. Do you think people should be able to claim benefits for the following conditions? And I do stress the word mild in here. Mild depression, mild autism, ADHD.
So there's some work that the Centre for Social Justice published last week, and we've been talking about this, which is where, because we see that the fastest area of growth in claims for sickness benefits is to do with common mental disorders, some of the things that you referred to, in behavioural conditions, that actually that's what we think the government really needs to control. And so examples of that, anxiety, mild depression and ADHD, for instance, and the Centre for Social Justice reckons you could save up to £9 billion by doing that. And actually then you could use some of those savings to invest in some treatment to support that people with some of those conditions may need to be in work.
OK. Now, the Tory peer, your former colleague Craig McKinlay, he lost all 4 limbs. He had sepsis. Quite miraculously, he survived, and he's now working, he says, in 3 jobs. He says many sickness benefit claimants should, quote, get off their backsides and find a job. Do you agree with him?
I mean, Craig is so inspiring, and he's a good friend of mine, and what he's done is just extraordinary. From being so close to death, clearly having, you know, people who it's a life-changing surgery, and now working, as you say, and as he's described. And so, you know, I'm with him that actually we do need to make sure that people, even if they're struggling sometimes with their health, are working. Of course, there will be people in some situations where they're not able to work. But the fact is, and that's why I talked about common mental disorders, actually many people in that situation would be better off in work. There's plenty of evidence that tells us that. That's what the government should be doing, is supporting people to be in work, not on benefits.
The government doesn't seem to be able to admit to itself that some people are claiming benefits erroneously, that some people do need to get off their backsides. Is it your perception that some people are gaming this system and are actually being feckless?
So one of the things, and I've been looking at the point at which the benefits claims started going up, the sickness benefits claims started going up, which very much started just before the pandemic and then through the pandemic and after. One of the things that changed during that period was a shift to far more assessments being done by telephone. Before they were face-to-face. Clearly during the pandemic things were done in different ways. That's something that really needs to change, because a face-to-face assessment is a much better way of really understanding what somebody's health condition is and what they can and can't do.
Ali McGovern, who is a Labour minister, has said that work is not a route out of poverty. I'll quote her, "It is simply no longer the case that work, by definition, provides a route out of poverty. It is also true that getting any job is not a route to better pay." What's your analysis of that statement by Labour?
Well, I think the problem is that that reflects the Labour mindset, which is much more towards giving people handouts and keeping people on benefits, compared to the approach we take, which is that work is the best way out of poverty. Work is the best way to improve your situation. And the right thing for people to do is to be supporting themselves and their families, and that's what the government should be trying to achieve. I know there's one reason we believe that they don't, and why they're having so much trouble getting welfare savings through their MPs, even with such a huge majority.
But the welfare bill did balloon under the Conservatives, didn't it? You had Ian Duncan-Smith, your predecessor, introduce universal credit, the benefit bills came down. How on earth did you allow it, as the Conservative government, to get this high, this quickly? We're talking about 86 billion in a decade. That is unprecedented. The benefits bill back in 1985, I looked it up, was 12 billion. That's equivalent to the savings you're saying that we now need. That's the entire benefits bill in 1985.
So, I mean, as you just said, in the period between 2010 and the pandemic, we brought the welfare bill down. We did a particularly good job at getting people back into work, at introducing universal credit, which was a big reform and hard to do. It was controversial in Parliament, but we did it because it was the right thing to do to make sure that work paid. What we then saw more recently, as I said, coming through the pandemic, was this rise in people claiming sickness benefits, and the sickness benefit system not working for the world that we live in. One of the things that has happened, and I campaigned on mental health when I was first a member of Parliament. I wanted to see better treatment in the NHS for people with serious mental illnesses. We did work that reduced the stigma of mental health, but what we have seen is this huge rise in people coming forwards with claims to do with mental health, and as I said, the shift from face-to-face to more telephone assessments. These are both things that need to change to fix the system. We had reforms in progress in the run-up to the last election, which the Labour government has abandoned.
OK. After a year of Keir Starmer, how well do you think Labour is doing, in a word?
Disastrous.
Disastrous. So why aren't you doing better? Why has the latest Ipsos Mori poll suggested that Reform are on 34%, and despite a calamitous 12 months with Labour in power, the Tories are down to 15?
So we had clearly a big defeat at the last general election, and the public were angry with us. I mean, I know I spoke to enough people on doorsteps who told me how frustrated they were with us and the tail end of our period in government. And people want us to listen, learn, reflect from that experience. With Kemi Badenoch as our leader, we have somebody who's leading from the front, who's got very strong principles and is determined that we do the hard work to come up with the right answers. That's the work we're doing, to come up with the right answers to offer to the public in the next general election. And in parallel, working really hard, as I am on welfare, to hold this government to account. And we've seen a series of U-turns from the government, things that we have pushed them on, and they're having to stop and think.
All right, Helen Whately, thank you very, very much indeed for joining me this morning. Great to speak to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to Nicholas Hopton. He's the former British ambassador to Iran. He also worked in Libya, so knows the Middle East very well. And he'll join me to assess the current situation in the Middle East. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Nicholas Hopton, the former British ambassador to Iran. Lovely to see you this morning. Thank you so much for your time. Before we get into Middle Eastern matters, did you manage to catch these scenes at Glastonbury yesterday with one particular artist appearing to call for the death of the IDF? It follows a controversy over the Irish band Kneecap performing, having glorified Hamas and Hezbollah with the words, "Up Hamas, up Hezbollah." You know that region very well, Nicholas Hopton. What's your reaction to what happened yesterday at Glastonbury?
Well, I'm a big fan of Glastonbury and rock music, but I think what happened yesterday was outrageous, and I'm glad to hear that the police are taking it seriously and looking into it.
Thank you for that. What's your current analysis of the situation in Iran? I was reading yesterday we've had Death to America chants on the streets of Tehran, a mass protest, actually, at the funerals of some of those top military chiefs that were killed by those airstrikes a couple of weeks ago. We've had a missile from Yemen intercepted. The Ayatollah has been threatening retaliation. What's your analysis of the current situation?
Well, I think it's almost a week since the ceasefire was brought into force between Israel and Iran. So it's a very good moment to take stock now that the dust has settled a little bit. And I think we shouldn't be surprised to see that in Iran, these kind of defiant messages are coming out from the Islamic regime. It's worth thinking, actually, what has been achieved by that 12 days of conflict, and whether the world is a safer place, whether the Iranian threat to the region and to Israel in particular has been reduced in any way. I think some observers might note that Iran still has the potential to create a bomb. The IAEA says Fordo, the main facility which was bombed by the US, its centrifuges are not operational, but we still wait to see whether or not Iran actually has the capacity to move forward in creating a bomb, if it so chose to do. And it may well, there are more voices now, actually, Camilla, choosing that line probably within the regime than before, because the path of negotiation led to a strike which some might say was premature by Israel, but certainly a strike which has strengthened the hardline voices saying this may not have happened if Iran had actually already had a bomb. So I think it's 700 approximately people have died, many of them civilians. The world is arguably not a safer place. So where do we go from here? And the Iranian regime is defiant, as you just noted. They are sending strong signals. The supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, has made speeches this week which have obviously irritated President Trump, and they were designed to do so probably because Iran is nothing if not provocative. And I expect we'll see more of the same. What needs to happen now is a move led by the United States, led by the President of the United States, to move back to diplomacy and negotiations, because the idea that Iran will simply capitulate or that there will be a spontaneous revolution at this point seems slightly fanciful.
Can I just confirm then, did you not support Donald Trump's strikes on those nuclear facilities?
Well, I was surprised when they happened, given that he had called a couple of days earlier for a period of diplomacy. It wasn't really a case of whether I support them or not. I've always thought that if there's going to be change in Iran, and if the Iranian nuclear threat is actually going to be reduced and mitigated, contained for the long term, it will need to be in the framework of an international deal, as existed before. The JCPOA, which was, of course, Donald Trump withdrew from in 2018. So you won't surprise you, Camilla, as someone who's spent a lot of time as a diplomat in the region, that I always favour diplomacy over war.
No, and I can well appreciate and indeed understand that. I suppose when we look at that previous Iran nuclear deal and we ask ourselves the fundamental question, is it actually possible to negotiate with a regime that has described America as the great Satan, that wants Israel and with it all Jews wiped from the map, that habitually murders girls because they've taken off their hijabs, throws gays off buildings, and is generally torturous towards its own people? Can you ever really negotiate with that sort of regime, Nicholas Hopton?
Well, I agree. It's a really very, very difficult challenge, but it's happened before, and it produced a result in 2015, which, although it wasn't a perfect deal by any means, and it was very limited in its scope, essentially Iran agreeing to have inspections and not enrich uranium and other materials above a certain level, within international limits. In exchange for that, there was some easing of sanctions. So it has happened before, and it is, of course, always very distasteful to deal with authoritarian, brutal regimes which don't respect the human rights of their people, and as you've just accurately described, is a threat to regional stability, other countries, other populations living peacefully in Western countries. And we know that Iran in recent years, according to the head of MI5, has tried to attack, kill people living even in this country. So it's not a question of trying to say this regime is benign in any way whatsoever, but it comes down to the question, is it possible to achieve the outcome that the UK and our allies would like to see, which is an Iran that is not posing a threat, that respects its people, that has a government which is in line with its population's wishes, and certainly is not promoting the eradication of another country such as Israel. Is it possible to achieve that through conflict or through diplomacy? And having lived through the last 3 weeks, I imagine there are some wise people in the White House at this point who are perhaps concluding that it's time to try diplomacy.
I know, but they tried diplomacy, and then you mentioned there those sanctions being removed. Many will argue, well, that just emboldened Iran to fund its proxies in Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, to carry out the mass murder of October the 7th and continue to threaten Western civilization.
Well, I was in Tehran at that time as the British ambassador when the sanctions were eased. And yes, Iran was still causing trouble in the region, was still funding proxies. But what it did do is contain Iran's nuclear ambitions, and it made them much more transparent, and the International Atomic Energy Agency were able to inspect the facilities, and Iran was much more contained, if you like. The regime was more contained. What happened, the reason why I would argue, and I'm sure others would argue against me, but I would argue that one of the main reasons why Iran emboldened its proxies and increased its funding to Hezbollah in particular and Hamas, the Houthi, was because of the collapse of the JCPOA nuclear deal in 2018, and that was largely due to the US withdrawal.
Yeah, no, OK, I can understand that counter-argument too. Finally, just because you've lived out there, just tell me why there has never been a kind of coordinated resistance movement in Iran. I think there's obvious answers to that. Nobody wants to be killed by the IRGC for showing any sort of support for an alternative to the Ayatollah. But that's been an ongoing problem. Roland Oliphant, who's the foreign editor of The Telegraph, put it to me like this last week. Unfortunately, Iran doesn't have its own Alexei Navalny figure.
And Roland's absolutely correct. There is no one unifying figure in the opposition to the Islamic regime. There are various factions, and they may be feeling stronger, and certainly they are more vocal at the moment. One of those, as you'll be aware, is the son of the former Shah, Reza Pahlavi, who gave a big press conference last Monday stating his willingness to return as a transitional leader while Iran moves from the current regime to a more democratic system. But no one figure, including Reza Pahlavi, seems to command a consensus among those opposed to the regime inside the country and outside the country. And there are many, many voices, because the Iranian diaspora is very large, spread across the US, Canada, Western Europe, including the UK, a big diaspora. And they have views, and people in the country have views. There are protests. There are often protests in Iran, which may surprise some viewers. And this week, and even during the conflict, there were protests, but largely, as I understand it, taking place in provincial capitals, cities, rather than in Tehran, where people were more concerned about their own safety. Yes. So I don't know whether we're going to see a rapid escalation in opposition to the regime. Certainly the regime is trying to preempt that. This week alone, I understand, upwards of 700 people have been arrested for anti-regime activities in Iran. So maybe this will escalate, but at the moment, it seems to be being contained by the regime.
Yes. Nicholas Hopton, thank you very much indeed for your insight this morning. Really, really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla.
Well, still to come, I'm going to be speaking to Edward Davies. He's the research director at the Centre for Social Justice that have done a lot of work on the welfare bill and how it can be brought down, particularly on that issue of mental health conditions. And, of course, I'm going to be speaking to Sarah Vine about her book, How Not to Be a Political Wife. And let's be honest, she hasn't held back in the book, so she won't be holding back on this show. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So Saturday was very warm for some of us across the south. There was some rain around though, and we're going to continue to see some outbreaks of rain as we head through the rest of Sunday, mainly across parts of Wales and southwest England. Some patchy light rain and drizzle over any high ground. We'll see one or two showers just feeding into parts of Northern Ireland, some longer spells of rain into parts of northwest Scotland through Sunday afternoon. But for most of us, it'll be very dry, plenty of sunshine on offer, plenty of blue skies and some lighter winds as well compared to what we saw on Saturday, but it will still be very warm across the southeast. Highs here of 29, 30, potentially even 31 degrees, and even across the north and the west feeling a little bit warmer than it did on Saturday. A cloudy end to the day across the north and the west of Scotland. That area of rain continues to push its way northwards through Sunday evening. Eastern Scotland and into northern England, though, generally staying dry overnight. We will continue to see one or two isolated showers across parts of Northern Ireland. Potentially one or two of these could be heavy in places. But across much of England and Wales, generally a dry night to come. Plenty of clear spells as we end the day on Sunday, so some late sunshine is possible in places. The showers across Northern Ireland gradually start to ease overnight. It will still stay quite cloudy across western parts of Scotland. Potentially we could see some light rain and drizzle over any high ground here, and we'll see a band of rain just arriving across the west of Northern Ireland into the early hours of Monday morning. But for much of England and Wales, staying dry overnight and clear, with plenty of clear spells, but despite those clear spells, another very mild night to come. So a very warm start to the day on Monday. The rain we see across the northwest continues to spread its way north and eastwards as we head through Monday afternoon, potentially turning a little heavy across parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland, but across much of England and Wales, a dry day to come, plenty of sunshine as we head through the afternoon, and generally feeling much warmer on Monday compared to what we saw on Sunday. Temperatures in the south and southeast around 34, potentially 35 degrees.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Edward Davies, the Research Director at the Centre for Social Justice. Edward, lovely to see you this morning. We've been talking a lot about welfare on the show. I've spoken to Wes Streeting about it, who did admit, yeah, actually, despite the rebellion and the U-turn, the welfare bill is still going to be higher at the end of Parliament than it is now. Talked to Helen Whately. Is it all the Tories' fault? Oh, well, not really. I mean, I think it probably is largely their fault that it's gone up by 86 billion in the last decade. What are some of the solutions here as far as the CSJ is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, the solution has to be, it's not cut, it's reform. So we keep hearing about welfare reforms, and these aren't reforms, they're cuts. And you need to get into the weeds and think what's actually going wrong. So if you look back 15, 20 years ago to what we did to reform welfare, it was people getting trapped on 16 hours because of the precipice. So they put in work allowances and taper rates to ensure that it was worth getting more hours. The problem we're seeing now, one of the big problems, is young people with low-level mental health conditions. That's the big growth area now. And so the answer can't be what we did 10, 15 years ago. It can't be just cuts. It has to look really specifically at what is the problem we're seeing and how do we combat that. And a lot of that will be around young people and mental health. Because if you leave the workforce that early in your life. The scarring, the life on benefits is terrible. So let's look specifically at that. I think that's where the
so interesting because the bill doesn't include those people at all.
No.
So some of the uproar, and it's understandable, is this idea that if you're claiming for a disability now, like for instance rheumatoid arthritis, you're going to get a different payout than you would have before the bill was introduced. But why is it that they're looking at disability benefits for those sorts of very serious conditions? By the way, I'm not saying that depression isn't a serious condition, but mild depression, mild anxiety, people claiming PIP payments for, in some cases, the Telegraph has exposed it, ADHD, Edward. The bill doesn't look at those at all.
No, I mean, what the bill does is just incredibly blunt. It just takes everything. So as you say, something like arthritis, about 77%, I think, of people with an arthritis payment will get hit. People with cardiovascular disease, people with cancer, it just cuts across everything. And that's why it's the important thing is saying, actually, what are the specific conditions we can really do something about? So mental health, for example, we do know that talking therapies for mild sort of anxiety or depression are really good. They have good outcomes. So rather than just giving cash and sort of writing people off, as I think we do a bit too much now, can we take that cash and invest it into treatments and actually make some savings at the same time? There are definitely better ways of doing this.
It's the same with the lunacy of giving people with alcoholism a PIP payment, which I pointed out as the daughter of an alcoholic who passed away many years ago. You know, an alcoholic will just take the PIP payment down to the off licence, give them access to addiction services. In general, this Labour rebellion, as far as Keir Starmer is concerned, the changes that have now been made, I mean, the Tories are saying that's actually made everything worse. Do you agree with that analysis?
Yes, broadly, yes. And the problem
just explain why.
Yeah, the problem they've got is that because this came out of cutting rather than reforming, any changes is just to change vary the cut. So it doesn't, whatever they do, it won't reform the system. It will just cut it by a different amount. So the original cut was to get about 5 billion, and now the cut is to get about 2.5 billion. So now we're not even saving money. When it's not that we're not reforming, we're cutting, and we're cutting badly as well. And they have to come back to this and say, if we are because basically there's two ways you can cut the bill. You can either give people less money, which is what they're doing, or you can get people into work. And then you come back to the bill and say, how do we get people into work?
Helen Whately, the Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, did make a good point about the lack of face-to-face assessments. Now, I remember reading this. Since COVID, I think face-to-face assessments have gone down by something staggering, over 80%. These days, it's all analysed either on the phone or on a Zoom call. Is that right, Edward? What should change in that regard?
I mean, I would certainly have them back face-to-face. I think there are some quite interesting nuances in this. So face-to-face, if I'm claiming, I am more likely to be honest with you because it's hard. Over the phone, if I'm the assessor, I'm more likely to be hard with you because I can't see your eyeballs. So there are some behavioural things in there, but I think the fact is we don't really know what effect it's had, but we do know the bill's going up. So if we go back to face-to-face assessments, actually that would really help.
I know it's a difficult nettle to grasp and it's become one of those things, a taboo that you can't discuss, like transgender once was and mass migration. Are some people gaming the system?
Yeah. So some people will be, but we need to be clear that there will be some people...
Because Labour don't like to admit this, by the way. They say, no, everybody is a genuine claimant. Of course they're not.
There will be people committing fraud, and, there's a fraud part of DWP that will try and reclaim that. The difficult bit, and we hear this a lot, we work with lots of small charities, and they say what they're seeing on the ground is people leaning into conditions. So there probably is something wrong. They do have a mild condition. But if there isn't good work in the area, and they're thinking, universal credit doesn't give me a lot, but if I get the health element and if I get PIP on top, actually I can get more than a minimum wage job. And so it's not that there's nothing wrong with them, but rather than leaning into work, the system makes them lean into getting more payments.
And is this how we've come to this situation, which seems unbelievable to me, that if you look at the statistics of the working age population, about a quarter of them are claiming a disability? It cannot be the case that we are more disabled as a society now than we were 10 years ago.
It's certainly the case that we are an international outlier as well. So there's something in our system that's not working here because every other country except Denmark, I think, has gone down since the COVID pandemic and we've gone up. So there's definitely something in our system that is incentivising people to move into disability rather than into work. But equally at the same time, there is a bigger macro picture of is there good work in every area? So if I'm sitting in an area, you go to somewhere like Birkenhead, very high incapacity, very high disability claimants, but not a lot of great work.
So do you think this has also been exacerbated by the budget? We've got the welfare bill. We've got the welfare bill. We've got the workers' rights bill. It hasn't even been introduced. We've got hirings down, unemployment up. people not wanting to employ younger people because the minimum wage has gone up. I mean, have we got a perfect storm going
these
on
things
here, Edward?
all interlinked, definitely. And I think some of this comes back to there isn't really a big overarching vision or narrative from the government at the moment. And one of those could be about work. Work is a good thing. Let's get people into work. Let's make sure the tax system incentivises work. The welfare system incentivises work. The school system gets people into work. And that would be a big, hopeful, positive vision that would cut across everything.
All right. Thank you very much, Edward Davies, for joining me today from the CSJ. Lovely to speak to you. Work, we love it, don't we? Especially on a Sunday morning. And coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to Sarah Vine, who, let's be honest, made quite hard work of Brexit. Did it cost her marriage to Michael Gove? It certainly seemed to have cost her relationship with Samantha and David Cameron. We're going to be discussing all of that in just a jiffy. Don't go anywhere.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
It's going to continue to be very hot across southern parts of the Mediterranean over the next couple of days, but not everywhere is going to see that hot weather. Parts of Madeira, the Canary Islands, seeing a little bit of clouds and blustery winds over the next couple of days. But it's southern parts of Spain, southern parts of France, parts of Italy, Greece that will continue to see those temperatures rising into the mid, perhaps high 30s, maybe even locally the low 40s too. There will still be plenty of sunshine on offer for many though, and those temperatures will be on the rise as we go over the next couple of days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Vegetarians now have a greater desire to wield power more than their meat-eating counterparts. I mean, you like a sausage, don't you, Biggins?
I like a sausage, but I have gone off meat per se, funnily enough, as I'm getting older. I think there are, it takes a lot of eating a piece of meat, if you pardon the expression.
And the older you get, the more you find that it takes a lot of meat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I must admit, I have more of a conscience about eating meat as I get older.
Yeah.
And that's a fondness of animals brings that. And if you ever go on Instagram and you look at cows and horses and pigs,
they're wonderful.
They're all affectionate and incredible.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And there we are, putting it into our mouths and eating it.
What do you think about the move to enforce vegetarianism on people, though? Because especially in schools and some universities, there's this trend for Meat-Free Monday, where there's this enforced absence of meat on children.
I think it's ridiculous. Let kids do what they want, to be honest with. Within reason, obviously, a healthy diet, da-da-da-da-da. But no, I think, I don't eat meat, the husband eats meat. It's not an issue. Eat what you want. But I think that the fact that they're trying to force this into schools, look, let kids experiment, give them a vegetarian option.
Yes,
let them
and all
see
schools do that.
Just options.
It has just become political, and also there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I know children are often told that eating meat is terrible for the environment, but importing avocados thousands of miles is also terrible for the environment.
But also, I mean, a lot of vegetarian meals, are certainly processed vegetarian meals, have got a load of salt and fat and sugar in them, so they're actually worse for you than eating a lean piece of meat.
I think the tide is turning now, because the new trend amongst young people, particularly young men, is protein. Chicken, breasts, tuna. That's the new trend, to get as much protein in them as possible. It's very difficult to do when you're vegetarian.
GB News, the People's Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. As promised, joining me now is journalist and author Sarah Vine to discuss her explosive new book, How Not to Be a Political Wife. There it is, look. He did say put it on the other camera. You know, I've got this thing with where I put the book.
I love that you've dressed
I'm
for the book.
matching. It's camouflage
it's
now.
brilliant.
So what's the reaction been like? Because, my goodness me, this has created a little bit of a stir in Westminster.
It's been surprisingly positive. I've had lots of really nice messages from people who are in the book.
Not the Camerons.
Not the Camerons, no, but people who are in the book. And also I thought people would be a lot more tribal about it.
Yes.
You know, a bit more, oh, she works for the Daily Mail, oh, she's an ex-Tory minister's wife, so it must be awful. And in fact, what they've done is they've actually read it and then they've gone, oh, actually, it's not that bad.
Well, it's not that bad. Look,
it's number 3 in the Sunday Times bestseller list.
Hello.
I'm quite
Very
pleased
good.
with myself.
You are now, well, you already were, I think, a best-selling author, but you're a best-selling author again. Would you say that Brexit did ruin your relationship with the Camerons, or was it other things?
I think it was probably Brexit ultimately. I think that was the breaking point. Yes, I think it was heading that way because of politics generally, because politics is such a toxic environment and it's very hard for people to for friendships to survive in politics. But I think Brexit was the kind of hammer blow.
And you end up having...
It was so divisive.
Well, it's so divisive, but then...
But for lots of other people too.
Your ex-husband is entitled to side with whichever side he likes in the referendum,
Well, I mean,
right?
and it was a free vote, so yes.
It was a free vote.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we have David Cameron saying to you, get your husband under control.
Which I obviously failed to do. That's why how not to be a political wife.
Right.
Because if I had been a good political wife, I would have got him under control.
Indeed. I love the idea that anyone can get their husbands out.
Well, anybody can get Michael Gove under control.
No.
I mean, I don't think it's ever happened.
Might be tricky. And then also the row with Sam Cam.
Yes.
I mean, what do you put that down to? Just it's wife versus wife at
I
this
think,
point?
and she was at the end of her tether, basically.
Yes.
I mean, people must remember that she also had a really tricky time. You know, people were writing stuff about her the whole time. Everyone expects her to give up her she's a successful designer.
Yeah.
She's got to... Yeah, the whole sort of question of how a political wife is supposed to behave is quite an interesting one, I think. And it's sort of, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, the notion that you know, your career suddenly has to just disappear is quite sort of irksome.
Well, we called you at the Telegraph Lady Macbeth.
Yes.
Because you sent that email which got leaked suggesting that maybe Boris Johnson wouldn't be a great idea as PM.
I mean, that email was... so the night before, there'd been a sort of big conversation about how things were going pear-shaped and, you know, what to do. And what that email was just me summarising kind of in a sort of wifely way everything that had been said the night before and just sending it off. Of course, because I'm an idiot, I accidentally sent it to the wrong Henry, who turns out it was just some random Henry who was in my contacts book, who I don't even know. I have no idea who he was. I think he was a PR.
Right.
I think he might have been a beauty PR, weirdly.
But he presumably had some journalistic contacts.
But I think he thought, this is exciting.
Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting about what I, with hindsight, you know, thinking about the whole Lady Macbeth thing, it's part of that Carrie Antoinette thing, isn't it? So, you know, Carrie Symonds married to Boris Johnson. She had the same sort of thing, which was that how dare you have an opinion about some politics? That's for men to have an opinion about, and it was all it was my thoughts about, you know, and sort of also a little bit of encouragement, you know, go off and try and do your best, you know, that sort of thing. And I think that it's very difficult because, you know, why wouldn't you talk about the most important thing in your life to the person that you're married to?
No,
do you know what I mean?
I get that, but did you actively encourage him at that point to knife Boris? So let's just recap. So we have a situation where Michael Gove has supported leave, David Cameron and George Osborne are horrified, your friendships have been imploded by this whole decision. It then moves to the point where we do vote to leave. We've got Michael Gove and Boris Johnson having campaigned together like rabbits in headlights at that vote leave press conference, which, by the way, I attended.
I mean, they looked terrified.
They weren't expecting David Cameron to resign, were they?
No, they really were. And they weren't expecting to win. That was the first shock of the day.
No. Yeah. And your view on Cameron resigning, you used quite an interesting phrase to describe
I think it was a big mistake. I think if he had come out and said, this is not the result that I wanted, but I am the Prime Minister, I did call this referendum, I will oversee a smooth sort of handover transition. Yeah. He didn't do that, he just went. And as a result, there was this whole sort of psychodrama that
But you
ensued.
describe him as a man baby.
Yes, I think it was a bit petulant, yes.
Also, there's this killer line in the book where you say, particularly in light of your argument with Sam Cam. You say David is fighting for his political life. Michael was fighting for his political beliefs, which tells you quite a lot about the Cameron administration.
Yeah, I mean, those were that for me was the dividing line. You know, that Michael had a very sort of sad, you know, this was what he believed in genuinely. Whereas I think the referendum was done partly to try and make the political landscape easier and smoother. Do you know what I mean? It was like it was sort of there wasn't a real system of belief behind it. It was just like, we need to just get this problem sorted. It's a political problem and it needs to be sorted.
But it kind of speaks to this idea that Cameron, after all, was a kind of, you know, posh boy careerist rather than ideologically grounded.
Yeah, I think he was, you know, he was a really good manager. I don't think he was. I agree. I don't think he had a passion for politics or for certain ideas or a real kind of vision. You know, I think there are some politicians who do have visions, and I'm not sure he had a massive vision.
Because also there's class.
He just wanted to, you know, he wanted to run the country.
He wanted to run the country, like lots of Etonians do. People go to Eton and they say, do you know what? I'll tell you what I'll do next. I'll run the country.
Yeah, but because he thought he would do it well, and he thought he would do it better than the previous lot. And I think, you know, there's an argument saying that he did actually do it quite well.
I know, but doesn't it speak to... There's quite a lot of class in this book, and I don't know if it was intended, you know, the Etonian Camerons, she's from aristocratic stock, you, a girl brought up in Italy, and in the UK, Michael, an adopted son of a fisherman. Yeah. You know, there was very much kind of like keep the Goves in their place. At one point, you say you felt you were treated like the star.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the funny thing is, when I wrote it, it wasn't really at the forefront of my mind, but it's obviously come through. So it's obviously something that I felt subconsciously. But Michael did an interview yesterday in The Times, and he was brilliant. He put it, I mean, in classical Michael fashion, he said they were the elves and we were the hobbits.
Yes.
Because obviously Tolkien always has the answer to everything.
Also, yes. Well, let's move on to that, because Michael has in the past been described as rather Tolkien-esque.
Yes.
And some might say that he has very many political qualities, but should he ever have run to be PM? No. Most people agree on that.
Temperamentally unsuited.
Well, just generally maybe just not quite right. What on earth, in retrospect, was he thinking in deciding at the last minute to knife Boris Johnson and say, I would make a better Prime Minister than him?
It wasn't that he was saying, really. He was just trying to stop Boris.
Yeah, why?
So, because they'd had a few days where he had basically decided that Boris wasn't up to the job for a variety of reasons.
Lost letters to Andrew Leadsom, chaos, cricket at the weekend.
Exactly. And he'd basically come home and he'd said, this man is not ready to do this job. I just can't. I've got to throw myself in front of the Boris bus.
I know, but he wasn't equipped either.
Well, I mean, I suppose in his head he probably thought, well, I have run quite a lot of government departments, you know, maybe I've got a bit more... I don't know. To be honest, everyone was very tired and very emotional, and it probably shouldn't have made any decisions, which is why I go back to the Dave thing, which is that what would have been the sensible thing to do would have been for everyone to just stop.
Take a breath.
Go and have a sleep and a rest and a few days off, and then let's come back to it next week and think about it.
So are you saying the beginning of the end of conservatism could have been averted?
Could have been, yes.
If people just had a herbal tea, got off to sleep.
I mean, that's absolutely what I'm saying.
Do you think Michael regrets
always sleep on this? Yes, I think he probably does, yeah. I mean, you'd have to ask him, but I think...
No, we'll happily have you on the show, Michael, and you can explain yourself. But don't you think that, in retrospect, if he had just stuck with Boris and understood his capabilities but also his incapabilities and actually been his details man, been his deputy, put Boris front and centre, he was the showman, he's the guy who can deliver the speeches.
I think it would have been a much better outcome, probably, yeah.
Wouldn't it have been?
Yeah, definitely.
And then then we got Theresa May.
That's why I blame myself. This book is... I mean, the worst person in this book is me, obviously, because I'm the person who made so many mistakes. But that's why I feel so bad, because I think if I had had better presence of mind and had been less tired, less emotional, less confused, less all of those things, I might have been able to say to Michael when he came home and said, Boris can't do this. No, he can, it's fine. You just need to calm down. And I didn't, because I don't know, I just didn't make the right call. I mean, in life, people don't, do they? Sometimes you make mistakes. So I wanted to you know, it's a kind of mea culpa as well.
It's a mea culpa, but it's a very fun one, and it's a very, very good read. And I've forgotten I have to go to Chopper in a second, so we need to leave it there, Sarah Vine. But your book, How Not to Be a Political Wife, is out now. And it's number 3 in the Sunday Times bestseller, so buy it.
So exciting.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Camilla.
Chopper, you're covering for Michael Portillo. What are you going to come up with on today's show? Lovely to see you, chap.
Hello, Camilla. Yeah, it's Hope, not Portillo today. I hope you enjoy it. For 2 hours, we'll be talking about the chaos at the heart of Keir Starmer's top team. We're looking at what to do about Iran, issues at Tate Britain. Also, why is a field in Glastonbury selling out with people singing childhood hymns? Forget Kneecap, that's a happy story. And also, English Wine Week. We'll be cracking open a bottle of our best wine and just...
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. High pressure dominating, meaning it's largely dry across the UK through Sunday. But there is a fair amount of cloud this morning, trapped underneath the area of high pressure, but the strong June sunshine should get to work, and we'll see plenty of that developing as we go through into the afternoon. It may be stubborn, though, across parts of the Midlands into Wales, southwest England, like we saw on Saturday, Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland also seeing cloudier skies. Cloud could be thick enough for some drizzle at times over the hills. But elsewhere, generally sunny and temperatures really